Welcome to the deep dive. You know the drill by now, right?
Oh, definitely. We take a stack of your sources, your articles, your notes.
Exactly. And we basically extract the most important nuggets of insight, so you, the listener, don't have to wade through all the noise.
Yeah, we do the heavy lifting.
Right. So today we are dissecting Chapter 7 of Professor Cromwell-Smith's lectures. And our mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle a word that, we use it every single day, but we almost always misunderstand it.
It's true.
And that word is hope.
Yeah, it's a word that usually gets framed as something soft, something totally passive.
Like crossing your fingers.
Exactly. Crossing your fingers, wishing on a star, or just, I don't know, waiting around for the universe to finally cut you a break. It's treated as the emotional equivalent of a greeting card.
Which is nice, but not exactly a structural foundation for survival.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. What we're going to explore today, pulling directly from the professor's lectures, is a perspective that completely shatters that greeting card image. We are looking at hope not as wishful thinking, but as this active, protective, and authenticating force.
Right.
It is presented as an absolute structural necessity for weathering life's absolute worst storms.
And to really understand the weight of this perspective, we have to start where the source material starts. Like, we need to ground ourselves in the physical reality of the professor's world before we get into the heavy philosophy.
Oh, for sure. Because the scene the text paints is incredibly atmospheric. I want you to put yourself in this environment for a second. New England has just awoken to a regional state of emergency.
Yeah.
The tail end of a massive hurricane brushed the coastline the night before. And we aren't talking about, like, a heavy rainstorm here. We are talking about literal wreckage.
Yeah, flooded streets, completely devastated communities.
Exactly. Families who woke up to find themselves suddenly homeless.
And the campus itself is just reeling. I mean, the power lines are down, the sky is bruised, and there was this heavy, somber silence that always follows a disaster of that magnitude.
It's chilling. So through this light but steady morning rain, navigating these mildly flooded campus streets, comes Professor Cromwell-Smith.
On his bike.
Yes, he's pedaling his old, rusty bicycle through the literal aftermath of a catastrophe. He steps into his classroom soaking wet.
Right.
He's shaking water droplets from his hat. The floors are slick. Umbrellas are dripping in the corners. And he looks out at this quiet room of highly reflective, totally traumatized students.
Because many of these young people have been directly affected by the tragedy that just wiped through their town.
Yeah. And the pedagogical choice the professor makes in this exact moment is fascinating.
It really is.
He doesn't offer empty platitudes. He doesn't, cancel class or pretend everything is normal. He uses this damp, devastating, visceral reality to pivot to a lesson about sheer survival.
He decides to take his students back in time.
Right, to his own youth.
Yeah, to a moment when hope was like the absolute last thing he gave up.
He transports us from this flooded, modern-day classroom to a very different kind of storm. Young Erasmus.
Which is the professor in his youth. For context.
Right, exactly. Young Erasmus is dealing with an internal hurricane. He is facing the maddening scramble of his future. At home, there are these vicious nightly fights of blame regarding what he's going to do with his life.
And it's creating this deeply eroded confidence. I mean, he's a tormented, incredibly gifted mentee, but he is completely adrift.
So the contrast is brilliant. You have the external wreckage of the hurricane in the present mirrored by the internal wreckage of young Erasmus's mind in the past.
Wow, yeah.
And seeking an anchor, Erasmus goes to a cozy, timeless place. It's an antique bookstore called Morris Rose & Sons.
He's looking for his mentor.
Right. A man known simply as Mr. M, or the Equilibrist.
I'm going to pause on that title for a second.
Yep.
An equilibrist is a tightrope walker, an acrobat who performs balancing acts.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. In the context of this maddening scramble Erasmus is facing, it makes perfect sense why he'd seek out someone whose entire identity is built around finding balance when the ground beneath you is totally unstable.
That's a crucial piece of context, and actually Mr. M is dealing with his own instability that day. The text notes he is highly stressed, actively fending off these annoying journalists who don't understand his world or respect his peace.
Right, he's busy.
He's busy, he's irritated, but the moment he sees young Erasmus step into the bookstore, he drops everything. He recognizes those lost and clamoring eyes immediately.
Because he sees a kid drowning in anxiety, just standing in the doorway of his sanctuary.
Exactly. And out of pure tutelage as a labor of love, Mr. M sits his impetuous apprentice down. He decides the only way to center this young man is to read him a poem, quite simply titled Hope.
And the definition of hope laid out in this poem is the absolute core of what we need to unpack today.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
The author describes hope as our secret elixir for a life with purpose.
A secret elixir. Calling it that implies it's like a compound. It's something transformative that changes the state of whatever it touches.
Exactly. It changes the state of the human spirit.
Hmm.
The poem calls it the wellspring of willpower from which we draw meaning for our existence.
Mhm.
It's the cure for the blindness and deafness in our soul.
That's heavy.
It is. And the imagery gets incredibly evocative here. It says, hope illuminates life with shining lights, allowing us to hear whispering tunes and melodies on, quote, seemingly non-existent paths.
Non-existent path.
Yeah, and opening non-existent doors.
Okay, let's make this tangible. Because when I read that part of the source, an analogy immediately jumped to mind. I started thinking of this vision of hope like the starter motor in a car engine.
Oh, I like that.
Right. It is not just a comforting thought sitting in the passenger seat while you drive, playing the radio. It is the active mechanical spark required to ignite your willpower.
Right.
Without that spark, the engine, which is your drive, your purpose, your ability to make decisions,
It just doesn't turn over.
it doesn't turn over. You literally can't see the non-existent doors because you don't even have the headlights turned on. Your cognitive aperture is basically closed.
The psychology behind your engine analogy aligns perfectly with the text. Because when a person is devoid of hope, their brain is in pure survival mode. They experience cognitive tunneling.
Right, they just see the immediate threat.
Exactly, the immediate wreckage. Hope acts as the ignition that widens that perspective. It is the literal catalyst that allows you to perceive possibilities and solutions that, to a hopeless and panicked mind, simply are not there.
But wait, if hope is this powerful, active wellspring, how does it physically manifest when things go completely wrong? It's one thing to have a spark when you're sitting in a cozy bookstore.
Right.
It's another thing entirely when you are standing in the flooded streets of your ruined town.
That's a great point. And to understand that manifestation, we have to look at the poem's most striking metaphor. It presents a fascinating paradox, describing hope as stealth armor beneath soft, gentle silk.
Stealth armor beneath soft, gentle silk. That is beautiful, but it definitely requires some unpacking.
Oh, for sure.
And frankly, the students in the professor's classroom require it too. There's an economics major named Lucas who raises his hand.
Lucas, yeah.
Right, Lucas is the logical, practical thinker in the room. He represents the skepticism of the audience. He asks the exact question you listening right now might be thinking.
Which is?
How can something as completely intangible as hope provide real, actual protection against tangible, physical hardships?
It's the ultimate pragmatic question, because an invisible feeling cannot deflect a falling tree. It cannot magically rebuild a flooded house. So how on earth is it armor?
Right.
Well, the professor's response to Lucas dives into the mechanics of human resilience. He explains that hope provides an existential shield against failure, quitting, or surrender. It provides mental and emotional fortitude.
So it's not protecting your physical body from the storm, it's protecting your mind from the trauma of the storm.
Exactly the distinction he makes. When a disaster hits, the immediate threat is the physical damage. But the secondary and honestly often more fatal threat is the internal collapse.
The paralysis of despair.
Right. Hope is the armor that prevents that internal collapse. It doesn't stop the rain, but it stops your spirit from breaking under the weight of the loss. It dictates the how of your survival, how you respond, how you adapt, and how you eventually overcome the wreckage.
Okay, so that's the armor. And the silk in that metaphor.
The silk represents the outward appearance of a hopeful person. They don't necessarily look like a hardened, cynical warrior bristling with weapons. They might appear calm, gentle, even soft to the outside world.
Interesting.
But beneath that silk is an unbreakable inner resolve. It is a formidable protection because it allows someone to face the, quote, eye of any tempest without blinking.
Wow. So if hope is our internal armor, our existential shield that maintains our structure under pressure, what does that mean for our identity? Because the text makes a really bold claim following the armor metaphor.
Yeah, it does.
It says that while we hope, we remain authentic.
Authenticity and hope are inextricably linked in the author's philosophy. The poem frames hope as a stubborn belief that we can create a better future. When we hope, we are being completely true to our inherent human nature.
Right.
We are engaging with our core capacity to desire a better life. Without it, we're basically acting in contradiction to our own survival instincts.
And viewing it as a stubborn belief transforms hope from a passive wish into an active roadmap. The text emphasizes that you don't just know what you hope for, but also the degree to which you can achieve it. You are visualizing a future not to be postponed.
Yes.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, because this is where modern skepticism really kicks in.
Okay, where does the skepticism hit you?
With the whole idea of stubborn belief. In today's culture, we talk a lot about toxic positivity.
Oh,
the danger of just blinding yourself to reality. Does stubbornly believing things will get better actually fix the flooded streets? Or does it make us complacent? If I just sit on my couch drinking this secret elixir of hope, I'm still going to be sitting in a flooded living room. Doesn't this border on delusion?
that is the exact trap of misinterpreting hope, and it's brilliant you've hit on it. Because a student named Hillary challenges the professor with essentially the exact same concern.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She asks him point blank if hope alone is enough to drive us forward, or if it requires a partnership.
I imagine the professor shuts down the idea of hope as a solo act pretty quickly.
Oh, he is incredibly explicit about it.
Oh.
He tells Hillary that hope alone is just a starting point. Hope without action is merely wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking, right.
It's useless. To be genuinely transformative, hope must be paired with small steps of action, even and especially in the face of fear or crippling uncertainty. And then he adds a third vital element to the mix, a foundation of faith, which amplifies the hope.
So you have a triad: hope, action, and faith.
The triad is what makes the elixir actually work. Hope gives you the vision of the non-existent doors. Faith gives you the foundational belief that walking toward them isn't pointless. But action is the physical mechanism of actually opening them.
Let's apply this directly to you, the listener, for a second. Let's step away from the hurricane. If you are listening to this and you are, say, stuck in a soul-crushing, dead-end job.
Yeah, real-world example.
Right. The wishful thinking version of hope is sitting at your desk, crossing your fingers, and hoping your boss suddenly realizes your genius and promotes you. That's the toxic positivity.
Exactly.
The triad version, the stealth armor, is different. The hope is visualizing a better career. The action is going home tonight, opening your laptop, and rewriting your resume even though you're exhausted.
Right.
And the faith is trusting that sending that resume out into the void will eventually yield a result. The armor only works if you put it on and start marching.
And marching in that armor is not easy. It requires relentless effort. The text literally outlines this by saying that when there is hope, we are always ready to restart, rebuild, recreate, restore, renew, rekindle, repeat, rely, redo, and remake it all over and over again.
Wow, that is an exhausting string of action verbs. It completely destroys the idea that hope is just a soft, comforting feeling. Restarting and rebuilding over and over again is grueling work.
It is the absolute definition of grueling.
Yeah.
Which logically brings us to the ultimate philosophical climax of this deep dive. If hope, the professor's answer to Akiko is resolute, and honestly, it's chilling in its power. He explains that even in the face of the most unimaginable tragedies, when you have lost your home, your community, your loved ones, when all external liberties have been forcibly stripped away from you by a hurricane, by an economy, by an oppressor,
Yeah.
nothing and no one can deprive you of your ability to hope.
It is the one piece of territory that remains entirely yours. It cannot be conquered unless you surrender it.
It is the ultimate exercise in self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
You can be imprisoned, impoverished, or stranded in literal wreckage. But choosing to envision a brighter future ahead is a liberty that exists solely within the sovereign borders of your own mind and spirit. It is the last freedom standing, because it is the only freedom that is truly untouchable by outside forces.
That raises such an interesting point about human nature, which another student, Jennifer, picks up on during the lecture. She listens to this concept of the last freedom standing and this seed of courage, and she asks a very practical question. Is this an innate trait we're just born with, or is it a learned skill? Because if it's innate, if it's baked into our DNA, why do so many people lose it? Why do people fall into despair?
That's a huge question. And the professor explains it as a duality. We are innate dreamers. We're born with the inherent capacity to imagine and desire a better future. That's our biological and spiritual foundation.
Right.
However, life's hardships are constantly battering that foundation. The literal and metaphorical storms erode it, just like Erasmus's confidence was eroded by the nightly fights at home. Therefore, while the capacity is innate, hope itself must become a learned skill. You have to actively cultivate it.
It's like a muscle. Everyone has muscles, but if you don't use them, they atrophy.
Perfect parallel. Practice makes the armor stronger. It is a deliberate, conscious choice to persevere and believe in possibilities even when the data says they are completely out of reach.
Yeah.
The more you practice hoping in dire moments, the more you actively choose to rebuild and restart, the more resilient your stealth armor becomes. You train your brain to default to action rather than despair.
So connecting this back to the broader vision the author paints. Without this cultivated shining light of hope to guide the way, true happiness and equilibrium in life are mathematically impossible. You cannot find balance on the tightrope of life. You can't be an equilibrist like Mr. M.
Right, exactly.
If you are constantly looking down into the darkness instead of forward toward the light.
Because without hope, you are navigating the labyrinth of life completely blind. You have no headlights. Hope is what gives you the cognitive periscope to see above the walls of the maze and plot a course out.
I love the image of a periscope. And to bring this entire journey full circle, we have to look at how the professor wraps up his story of young Erasmus at the bookstore. The narrative resolution here is incredibly poetic.
It really is. After hearing Mr. M's wisdom, after absorbing this profound shift in perspective, young Erasmus steps out of the timeless sanctuary of Morris Rose and Sons and back into the real world.
But the atmosphere of that world has completely shifted.
Yeah.
The misty air wraps around him, but the rain has finally subsided. It leaves behind this fresh, earthy scent of renewal. The cobblestones are glistening faintly under the pale light of the street lamps.
The external storm has passed, which beautifully mirrors his internal shift. The heavy cognitive fog in his mind, the anxiety, the eroded confidence from the fights at home, it has cleared.
Wow.
In its place is the steady glow of hope and a newfound sense of determination. He has a realization that defines the rest of his life. He doesn't just decide not to give up. He decides he will never lose hope, and therefore he will never give up. The hope precedes the resilience.
It's a profound realization, and as the modern-day professor finishes telling this story from his youth, he looks out at his quiet classroom. He looks at these students who just walked in out of a literal hurricane, whose lives are currently in a maddening scramble.
Yeah.
And he leaves them with the understanding that hope isn't just a warm feeling that washes over you when things are going well. It's a choice, an attitude, a discipline.
So for you, listening right now, the takeaway from this deep dive into Chapter 7 is a mandate. Hope is your unwavering guide through life's labyrinths. It is a deliberate, resilient, structural choice you can make today.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of hurricane you are currently weathering, whether it's a massive professional setback, a devastating personal loss, or just the quiet, maddening scramble of everyday modern life. You possess the last freedom standing.
You have the ability to put on that stealth armor beneath the silk. It's sitting right there.
And once you put it on, you pair it with action and faith. You start looking for those seemingly non-existent doors, and more importantly, you start walking toward them.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering question for you to ponder long after you finish listening today. The professor taught his students that hope is a skill that grows stronger with practice. The more it's tested by the elements, the stronger the armor gets. So think about your own life right now. Look at the wreckage around you. What current frustration or storm in your life, that exact thing making you feel lost, overwhelmed, or ready to quit, is actually just a training ground.
Wow.
What if this very storm you are fighting is offering you the perfect, necessary opportunity to forge your own stealth armor?
It's a complete perspective shift. The storm isn't there to break you. It's there to teach you how to hope.
The rain might be falling and the streets might be flooded, but your engine spark is entirely up to you. Keep your stealth armor strong. We'll see you on the next deep dive.